You have never met this person before. You know nothing about them. You do not know their name, their history, their intentions, or whether they have ever done a single thing worth trusting in their entire life. But in the time it takes you to blink, your brain has already decided, trustworthy or not. And the terrifying part is not that your brain makes this judgment. The terrifying part is that you believe it. You feel it as certainty, as instinct, as something true about the person standing in front of you, rather than something your brain constructed in a tenth of a second using a set of rules written 150,000 years ago. The real reason you judge a face before you know anything about it goes back much further than any moment you can remember, and the answer is far stranger than you have ever been told. In 2006, psychologist Alexander Todorov at Princeton University ran a simple experiment. He showed participants photographs of two political candidates, people they had never seen before and knew nothing about. He gave them 1/10 of a second to look at each face, just 100 milliseconds. Then he asked them which candidate looked more competent. The results stopped the research community cold. The judgments participants made in 1/10 of a second predicted the actual election outcomes with 70% accuracy. 70%. From a single tenth of a second glance at a face. People who had never heard these candidates speak, never read their policies, never learned a single fact about them, were predicting real-world election results at a rate that should have been impossible if faces told you nothing. But faces do tell you something, just not what you think they tell you. Go back to the savannah. Go back 150,000 years to the environment your brain was actually built for. Every day, your ancestors encountered other people. Some of those people were from the same group. Some were from a different group. Some had good intentions. Some did not. And your ancestors had no LinkedIn profile, no reputation system, no background check, no references, no history to consult. All they had was the face in front of them, and the decision they had to make, friend or threat, ally or enemy, safe or dangerous, was often a decision that had to be made immediately before the other person got close enough to act. So your brain evolved a shortcut, a face-reading system so fast it operates below the level of conscious awareness. By the time you are aware of seeing a face, your brain has already processed it, categorized it, and delivered a verdict. You experience the verdict as an impression, as a feeling, as something that seems to come from the person themselves, rather than from the machinery running silently inside your own skull. The key region driving this system is the amygdala, a small almond-shaped structure deep inside your brain that processes threat and emotional significance faster than any other part of your neural architecture. Neuroscientist Ralph Adolphs at Caltech spent years studying patients with amygdala damage and found something extraordinary. Patients who had lost amygdala function could still see faces perfectly clearly. They could describe them in detail. But they had lost the ability to detect untrustworthiness in a face. They rated almost every face as equally trustworthy, regardless of what the face actually looked like. Without the amygdala's threat detection signal, the social judgment simply did not happen. The amygdala is reading specific features, not the whole face, specific geometric ratios and structural signals that, in the ancestral environment, genuinely correlated with important information. The angle of the brow, the set of the jaw, the width of the face relative to its height, the curvature of the mouth at rest. These features were not arbitrary. A brow angled sharply inward at rest looks like a threat display. A wider face with a lower brow looked, in the ancestral environment, like a face with higher testosterone, which correlated with dominance and potential aggression. A curved mouth at rest looks like the beginning of a smile, which in every human culture signals non-threat. Your brain learned these rules not from experience, but from evolution. They are not something you were taught. They are not something you can turn off. They run automatically, continuously, on every face you see, every moment of every day. But here is where it gets complicated, because the rules your brain is using are ancient. They were calibrated for a world that no longer exists, on faces that lived very different lives from the ones you encounter now. And the correlations they were built on, while statistically meaningful in the ancestral environment, break down constantly in the modern one. Researcher Nikolaus Oosterhoff at New York University collaborated with Todorov to map the exact facial features that drive trustworthiness judgments. They found that the faces humans rate as most trustworthy share features with happy faces, and the faces humans rate as least trustworthy share features with angry faces. Not because those people are actually happy or angry, but because the geometry of their resting face happens to overlap with the geometry of those emotional expressions. Think about what that means. You are judging a person's character based on what their face looks like when they feel nothing at all, when they are completely neutral, when they are thinking about what to have for dinner, or whether they remembered to lock the door. Their face, at rest, happens to contain certain angles and ratios that your ancient threat detection system interprets as signals. And you experience that interpretation as knowledge, as insight, as something real about that person. It is not, or at least, it is far less real than it feels. Researcher Jonathan Freeman at New York University used brain imaging to track what happens in the brain during these facial judgments. He found that the trustworthiness evaluation begins within 33 milliseconds of seeing a face, before you are consciously aware of the face at all, before you have formed any deliberate thought. The judgment arrives before the awareness of the face does. You are responding to a conclusion that was reached before you knew a question was being asked. And it does not stop there. Psychologist Amy Cuddy at Harvard Business School found that trustworthiness is actually the first dimension humans assess in any new social encounter, before competence, before intelligence, before any other quality. Warmth first, threat or no threat, safe or not safe. That is the primary question your brain is asking about every new person it encounters, and it is asking it and answering it before you have said a single word. Because in the ancestral environment, being wrong about threat was fatal. A false negative, deciding someone was safe when they were not, could cost you your life. A false positive, deciding someone was threatening when they were not, cost you a social connection you could have had. In an environment where being killed by a stranger was a genuine daily risk, the brain that defaulted to caution, that held strangers slightly suspect until proven otherwise, was the brain that survived. You are running that brain right now, and this is where the modern problem emerges. Because your ancient face reading system cannot distinguish between a face that genuinely carries threat signals and a face that simply has a geometry that overlaps with threat signals. It cannot tell the difference between someone who is actually dangerous and someone who happens to have a low brow, a wide jaw, and a mouth that turns slightly downward at the corners. Both faces get the same verdict, and you experience both verdicts as equally certain, equally obvious, and equally true. Research by psychologists Joshua Ackerman and John Barg found that the snap judgments people make about faces are remarkably resistant to correction. Even when people are told explicitly that their first impression of a face was statistically likely to be wrong, they continued to feel the original judgment. Even when they were given accurate information about a person that directly contradicted the face impression, the original feeling persisted underneath. The face had spoken, and the face does not easily take back what it has said. This is the architecture of a system that was built for speed, not accuracy, for survival, not fairness. A system that would rather make 1,000 wrong judgments than miss one genuine threat. And that system is now running in offices and courtrooms and first dates and job interviews and every moment when a new face enters your field of vision. The face you trust without reason. The face you distrust without evidence. The person you warm to immediately. The person who makes the back of your neck feel wrong before they have done anything at all. None of those reactions are about those people. They are about the geometry of those people's faces, filtered through a threat detection system that has not been updated in 150,000 years. You decided in a tenth of a second, and you called it intuition. Your ancestors called it survival. The stranger whose face your brain is reading right now has no idea you have already reached a verdict. They are simply standing there, feeling nothing in particular, their face doing what faces do. And your ancient brain, in the time it takes to blink, has already decided everything it thinks it needs to know.